Hello, horror fans. It's me, Cass,
Kylie.
and we are the Horrorcraft podcast. And today we have on one of our favorite people, which is Creepy Confidential. How are you, Creepy?
I'm doing great, or as I like to say, sup creeps whenever
Yes. Yes, you do. So if you missed it, we actually we did a live stream in September. Kylie could not come, which broke Kylie's heart because one of our favorite things about going to GhouliCon this past year was meeting Creepy, getting to talk to her about different things. But Kylie was stuck in Farmland that
storms were awful.
Yeah, she literally wasn't from.
Or did she?
Yeah.
It was rough. It was very
rough. So when we were talking about an episode to have Creepy on, there is one that since the beginning of Horrorcraft, before Kylie, before anybody else, when it was just me and I was in planning phases before Brittany even joined, I talked about doing an episode about when good people go bad, specifically related to religion. The reason I wanted to do that episode was because my fiance and I were having a conversation. Shout out to Jim. But he actually went to the Mormon church for a period of time with his mother growing up. And he ended up later in life having an experience with an older woman from the Mormon church that he went to in the middle of a Walmart that was kind of very just not behavior. Very cult-like behavior. Yeah, she pretty much got upset with him that he decided he no longer wanted to have kids and just got a 20-minute lecture in the middle of Walmart about his duty to have children and just basically and it just kind of got my mind thinking, how many people does this touch every day without us thinking about it? And obviously for me, I know about Jonestown. It is something that I keep very relevant in my mind because I think it's important to talk about. So the Sacrament is a good movie that I think kind of balances that line between horror and true horror more than other movies. And I think it does a good job at kind of playing around with things in a way that we don't really see in a lot of other movies. And so this is definitely one I wanted to do. So obviously, knowing Creepy and how amazing she is, I'm like, okay, let's do the Sacrament.
She's a nerd. What does she know?
Yeah. Gonna know everything. And so,
oh no, not everything. But thank you.
Yeah. But
if she knew everything, she'd be like a weapon. Dangerous.
Yeah.
If she knew everything.
Weaponized nerddom.
Yes. But
honestly, if the world ends or some crazy shit happens, I want Creepy.
Yeah, we're drafting Creepy.
I know a little bit of everything. Yeah.
You got that. You got that knowledge.
Yep. I know how to. I was in the military. Got that. Learned how to fish. Got that. I got a little bit of everything.
So, gardening. Yes.
Gardening. Oh, my garden. Yes.
Yeah. So I am very excited because we are definitely going to get into this now. Before we truly get into this, obviously, we've all made the jokes. We all know, too, at this point that Kylie and I have a running joke between each other where Kylie and I banter back and forth where she's really the cult leader and I'm just the public face of Horrorcraft.
The lackey? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I'm everyone thinks I'm the boss, and really it's Kylie behind me.
I'm the Jim Jones, and you're one of my minions.
Yes.
But that is not.
Yeah.
Good reference.
It's not true. I just want to be clear.
It's not true.
So, but also, we have to have a pun. We have to have a cup because I'm a cup person. I got this at Erie Culture Fest. Nice. And I saw it and I was like, I got it. It's Jim Jones.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. But all jokes aside, this is a very heavy, serious subject matter. We are going to talk about it with the utmost respect and as bluntly and honestly as we possibly can. And so going forward, this is going to be a very heavy episode because we are talking about mass suicide. We are talking about murder. We are talking about violence. We are talking about just drug use, abuse, a lot of just heavy topics. So if you feel like this is just not an episode that you can do today, we completely understand, and you can catch us in the next episode. And we totally understand and respect that. But going forward, massive trigger warning in effect. We will actually put the trigger warning down below, so that way everyone who sees it knows that, hey, this is the theme matter that we are going to be talking about going forward. So that way we are not inexplicably, testing somebody's boundaries, because that's not what we're about. But this is a very relevant and important topic. It is something that I think we are so far away removed from, but this happens in microcosms around us all the time. And this is a very deep subject that I think if we don't learn from our history, we can't move forward in the future. And so,
and you don't know what to look for.
Exactly.
And it seems like the generations are getting a little less aware, a little less afraid, where you have Gen Xers and elder millennials like myself. We're feral. We were born feral. We're still feral. We're latchkey kids.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you have this like mommy, daddy, or parents that are like bumpers, and they're not afraid of anything because they don't know what exists. It's not because they just have never been taught that. They're so protected.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, it's a generational thing. We need to teach people about things.
Yeah, and I truly feel like
I think we live in a time where so many people are lost.
Yeah.
And looking
That
for
too.
something to fill a void, and they're running from abuse, they're running from drugs and alcohol.
Lack of connection.
They're looking, that they want that connection, or like family. So for people like that, it's very easy for people to fall into situations like this. And a lot of people are like, well, how did you even get involved in this? How did you fall for this crap? It's really, it's not that hard to.
They cared at the time.
Yeah.
Somebody cared. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the things that we further and further get away with, especially as horror keeps dominating the market when it comes to film and television, is horror, and the backbone of horror is truly built on horror being a safe space to talk about things that are dark and ugly. It has always been political. It has always been controversial. It has always been dark. It has always tackled things that are not good. True crime has always weaved its way in. Just there has always been that void that horror can talk about things that not a lot of other genres can.
Right.
And that's the whole point of why a movie like this is so significant, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel to have a conversation about something. And we're going to get into it, but the Sacrament is done by Ty West. This is a man that can weave a story. He is responsible for X, Maxine, Pearl, but he's responsible for so many other stories. This is also a Eli Roth production. He was a producer on it. And obviously he talks about a ton of other subjects as well. This is his second forte into talking about jungle related things. The first being The Green Inferno, which was cannibalism. And so these are deep people that really kind of think about horror in a different way. And so this is a movie that I do think needs more of a glance at, and something that needs more recognition for, because in a world where we're truly focused on like rebooting things and putting things out there like this, and we still have a need for movies that are hitting at this level as well, because this is how we're reaching out to people still. that's the whole reason why a lot of us do this, is because we want to connect with people and we want to make sure that when we're gone, these things are still talked about. So that's why this is important. So buckle up. We're going to go on a very bumpy ride. We're going to talk about both the Sacrament and the real life figures behind the idealism of this movie, which the biggest one obviously being the Jonestown massacre and Jim Jones. Mm-hmm. And we are going to talk about some very heavy things. So on that note, we are going to get into it. So we are going to go ahead and cue the music. Let's do this.
Welcome to the Horrorcraft podcast.
I am so proud of myself that I knew every clip.
I'm so proud of you.
And you happen to have included, because I'm also a makeup nerd. You guys have seen my characters. They're like, you included, that is known to be at the very end where I believe, I can't remember the name of the movie. It's a witch.
The octopus.
Yes. Thank you. My brain, it's the end of the day. And that is one of like the go-to transitions that are known within film. And I am so glad that you included it.
Yeah. So that actually is a deep cut from our friend Tiki that I work with on the Talkin Tapes Collective. Mm-hmm. He put together a lot of different clips. And one of the things that we really talked to him about was feminine rage and the idea of women being more than just one thing in the genre.
Sure.
And so
the boobs and a bra, as I say.
Yeah. So he was very instrumental in picking things that towed that line. Yeah. Because really the only thing I'm like, for my own vanity, you have to include the Hex Girls. Because that's just like,
although you showed your age when you did. I'm like, oh, you're young.
Yeah. Well, but for me, like, I have always loved Scooby-Doo. And instead of I feel like Scooby-Doo is something that gets used a lot. Yeah. The Hex Girls kind of don't get talked about as much as they should.
I agree.
They kind of don't get as much love, but they are kind of that like duality in Scooby-Doo.
And that spooky girl, like if you started out young, that was probably who you started out with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Lydia. It was Lydia from the cartoon and the movie. Like it was Lydia. Yeah. Even though I didn't look like her, that's just kind of who I looked up to. But
even for me, like it wasn't even necessarily the Hex Girls. It was Daphne. Like Daphne was my person growing up. Like
I would say, which one?
More specifically, like the original Scooby-Doo. Like I remember that being on a lot, but then when it obviously evolved, and then obviously Sarah Michelle Gellar, who I already loved, and was Buffy to me, then became Daphne, and that's a deeper love. So it did kind of. I'm glad that but we did kind of get an education on that. So you are the second person that we have now that has brought that up. And we're very proud of it because I knew that it was like the first makeup trick where they did the,
I think the one before that or two before that was one of Dracula's concubine from Bram Stoker's. And that's going to be the one that looked like Medusa, which is who you had. She's going to be a character that I build in the future. She's on the list because I'm like, oh, but the one I'm building for the award show coming up in July, you guys are, if anybody who's there is seeing this, if you're there, you're not going to recognize me and you're going to love it.
Well, you're going to need pictures most definitely. So we can see it, but yeah, so shout out to Tanner. I call him Tanner. The world calls him Tiki. I'm sorry.
His name is Tiki, bro. I know he doesn't like to go by Tanner.
I know, but for some reason my mind is like, and maybe it's because they've like I'm the mom in the group.
Sure.
Of that group, which
it's your role.
kind of
She's like
disconcerting.
a mom to all the guys on Jackass.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just like the one in the like coffin backpack. Like, here guys, here's your protein shakes.
Right.
You're a Bam Margera's mom.
I really am. I really am.
Man.
So, but shout out to those guys over at Talking Tapes. We love them. But yeah, I love that, and we're super excited because we've kind of talked about this before, but Tiki is also doing the Spooky Moms intro, so we are going to be messing with that.
Well, I love it. Like I said, I recognize them all, and as a old movie person, love that.
Yeah, we really wanted like a good mix of, so he's just incredible. If you guys are listening and you have seen this, you haven't seen the Talking Tapes one is incredible too. So and I think he also did the one recently for Rick with the whole damn enchilada podcast. So
that's a great name.
Oh, they're incredible. So but yeah, so we're going to be talking about the Sacrament. And if you've ever listened to a deep dive from us, we don't do your traditional deep dive. We briefly talk about the movie in detail, but we really don't get too hardcore into like tearing apart every piece and part of the movie, because we want you to go watch the movie, and number two,
we like to talk about like the underlying things in horror movies that are not often talked about.
Where it came from and
it came from, why this is important, the symbolism behind it, and on a deeper connection, because I think that's why people don't relate a lot to horror movies, is they don't see it on that side until they do see it on that side. And I think Kylie and I have been lucky enough. We're going to just get the one cult joke out of the way while we're here now. But preaching the good word of horror, like, we go to a special needs family retreat. And one of the biggest things is, you would not believe, for us being in a group of people, like a ton of like people who have young children and everything, we are out here preaching the good word of horror. And like, this is, you may not like horror, but we could probably recommend a horror movie to you that you would like. That would
I do the same thing with the paranormal and cryptids. I'm like, no, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
It's like the first one's free. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I'm giving
You'll
this
like
to
it.
you.
Trust me.
Yeah. So my chiropractor is that way too. Kylie and I were just talking about it the other day, but like, my chiropractor, as soon as he found out that this is obviously the other side of my life that I do, he is like, I'm now like his horror gateway. So like every time I go in, he's like, okay, what am I watching this week?
Yeah.
What are you recommending to me?
Yeah. They do that at my work.
Yeah. So Kylie was very proud of me, but one of the first things is I was like, well, I think you and your wife need to watch Yellow Jackets. And so that's what him and his wife did. They watched Yellow Jackets, and now they're into it. I got them into From too. So I'm like, Kylie, we got another one. We've got it.
You got to make a list.
Yeah. So, but
only give them out one at a time.
Yeah. But I mean, we do get a lot of people that way, where they'll come back and they'll be like, yeah, I watched that and I loved it. Tell me some more of that. But I feel like a lot of people lose that, where you don't.
I get a lot of random people like that I went to high school with that I don't even, that we weren't even really like that cool, or like I didn't even know you knew I existed, but will come to me for recommendation. It's like,
you're like, do I really want to give you something bad because you weren't nice, or do I want to give you a good movie because I know who you were, and we just weren't in the same satellite, you know?
Yeah.
But if you were
if it was somebody
butthead,
that, I'm gonna recommend probably Bermuda Tentacles for you.
That's a bad.
Give them something gross or
no. Bermuda Tentacles was the worst. Like that was the worst movie that we've ever watched on this podcast. Wow. I normally have something to say, at least nice to say about any movie. Yeah. This is the first movie where I'm like, the only thing that saves this is you put Maya, Jamie Kennedy, and Linda Hamilton in the same movie.
Yeah.
And you still fucked it up.
You still
fucked it up.
You still screwed it up.
You still screwed it up. Yeah. I was like, this is just, no, we're not doing this. So I still feel bad. So Steve, if you're out there, if you got that invoice, just feel free to slip it into my email. I was still waiting for the therapy, invoice to come in. So Steve is probably just being a really nice friend and not, but Steve, it's fine. It's fine. I owe you. So, just drop the name.
Right.
Put it in the chat. So, but going forward, we are going to be talking about The Sacrament. The Sacrament, if you have not seen it, it is a movie by Ty West. He directed it and did a lot. He produced it as well and wrote it. And Eli Roth was a producer as well. It is readily available right now and has been for a while.
Yeah.
So it is
I watched it free on Amazon Video. So if anybody's out there, it was free.
It's on Tubi, it's on Peacock, it's on Amazon. It is on a lot of different
might
ones.
Tell you something.
Wasn't it originally released on Netflix? Like almost like the Netflix made movies or whatever.
No, I think they tried to release it in theaters for a period of time, and then it did go to Netflix after that. That's when Netflix first started, because this is 2013. Okay, this is when they first started doing. So I think they were even still doing DVDs at that time. And I think that's where that kind of pipeline went in. But I do know that this is one of the first ones that got put up on streaming.
Well, I have notes about this one. Yeah. That's for sure.
So, synopsis really quickly. This is about a group of individuals. All of them work for Vice, which Vice obviously was a real company at that point in time. And I think still is at this point.
They
still do mini docs and stuff.
Yeah, one of my favorite kind of docs they did was about the forgotten Ohio. Oh, why can't I think of it? It's one I preach a lot about the missing women in Southern Ohio. I believe they did that documentary along with Joe Berlinger.
Yeah. So, but they are hanging out with their friend one day, and he receives a weird letter from his sister inviting him to come and see her. She is in a remote town in Africa, and they're like, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this for the publicity. Let's go on this journey with you. And they're like, we could get a really good Vice exclusive. I think this will be great. Not knowing the horrors that await them. And very clearly when they land and get there, they realize very quickly that this is not what they signed up for. And there's even a point in the movie where they're like, okay, yeah, these people are a little weird, but nothing seems out of the ordinary. And then everything goes to shit.
Yeah.
And get into really the nuts and bolts of things, the true horror behind it. And obviously this was heavily influenced on Jim Jones and People's Temple and the Jonestown Massacre. But this movie, Ty West, felt very strongly about talking about cults and wanted to put it in a modern setting to show that even with technology, this is something that could happen. So I actually found an article today from the cinemaholic.com. I will go ahead and link it in the description down below. Obviously, I have all my thing, but basically, the format, they wanted to add heavy realism to the story and reflect that real life without kind of subverting what truly happened. So this is partially based on Jonestown. They ended up, I'm looking in my notes about specifically for his quote, because I think it was a very good point, and that's why I printed out this article, because obviously Ty West wants to know, has an idea of what he's doing with this. But he said West felt like one would require more than 2 hours to tell a story about the actual Jonestown tragedy. I've always been fascinated by People's Temple, West said in an interview with Collider while discussing this particular movie. History tends to repeat itself. Here's a way for me to make a fictional cult that ends like what happened in Jonestown and shows that the things that brought people to join People's Temple in the 60s and 70s are still relevant today. Mm-hmm. And that tragedy that happened, something like that, is not extremely far-fetched today. And again, just to confront you with what is, with what real horror looks like. So I thought that was really important that he talked about that. But
that hearing that helps me digest what I watched a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to read too far into it, because I like to get like an unbiased, but when I watch it, I just knew that it had something to do with it. But it helps me slightly.
Yeah.
Slightly.
Yeah, no, I get it, because a lot of it, so the reason why he kind of did it the way that he did is he wanted the real life relevance of manipulative cults and the threats that they pose painted for viewers, and a villain that was more scary and relatable than fiction, but still was a character that related Jim Jones in a way, but wasn't actually Jim Jones.
Right.
So I think that is very important, because, he really could have just made a movie about Jonestown. But, for him, and reading through a lot of like the research and stuff that he did for this, he didn't feel like he could give it the reverence it deserved with doing a pure factual Jim Jones movie, which I could see that, because how many times do we get a movie based on somebody's real life and it's by somebody incredible, but then it doesn't do it justice.
But it just doesn't hit. Like there's something about it. It's like, our brains know too much about the person or have seen them too many times. And like, that was this one, that was the Sacrament. I watched the problem is he took a dude that had the Jim Jones look, the Jim Jones kind of swag about him, that Southern slightly accent, even though Jim Jones wasn't Southern. It's still, the glasses, the way he acted with the females, it was too on the nose, where I was like, bro, just do a freaking Jonestown movie. Make it really scary without this weird whatever it was that they did, the backstory. Vice.
Yeah, no, I totally see that. I totally understand that perspective. I think the reason why he went for that, though, is because
budget.
Yes, the glasses, yes, this and that. But how many cults do we know that their leader exhibits that same exact behavior? And actually, when looking into a lot of this and then comparing to other cults like Jim Jones, the way he looked with like the shirts and everything like that. Right. If it were not for the glasses, there are a lot of Mormon splinter cults that their leaders acted the same exact way and then dressed the same exact way. So I get why he chose to do that. It was also an intentional choice, though, because of this next, what I'm going to talk about here in a second. But the study that was done, that I think is why he chose that specific time period, is because one of the best studies that was done about like cult activity was during the 60s and 70s.
Oh, yeah.
And reflecting that. And that's why I think he intentionally chose that person. So according to a 1978 New York Times article, an estimated 2,500 to 3,000 cults were operating in the U.S. with anywhere between 300,000 to 3 million members. Though not all cults were proven to be harmful, the toxicity of a cult was difficult to measure without any tangible proof. Nevertheless, the themes of religious exploitation and its ultimate utilization by cult leaders, as explored in The Sacrament, was inspired by real-life events, particularly, obviously, the mass murder-suicide massacre of Jonestown.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, I get exactly where you're coming from, because I do think if this is Ty West now that did X and everything, I think he probably would have just done it.
Yeah. Because he had Eli Roth, which is a huge, like, if you put his name, regardless of how gross his movies may be, in my opinion, he has, where if someone says Eli Roth, a company's probably going to pick it up. Well, he's a big dog now, you know.
Well,
but back then, maybe not quite. It was kind of a dry spell for him.
Well, the other part
I think though, if we're gonna do a Jonestown movie, I'm with Creepy. I want it to be
make it Jonestown.
Make it Jonestown.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, but I don't think that it would need to be a horror movie. Like, I would like to see more of almost like a biopic.
Yeah.
Because I want to just not only see what happened in Jonestown, I really would like to see his childhood and how Guyana came about.
There's so much story to where he came from and how he was raised, and it kind of makes you go, well, this kid really didn't have a chance. It's a good thing he was social, you know, like he was kind of he became a social butterfly that way, but tell us that story. But nowadays I get it, you know, unless you're going to make a 3-hour bio, whatever, you know, and you have to have a huge budget, because you have to show that you are going to be showing the mass suicide of over 900 people correctly.
Well,
and not just they're alive, they're dead, like the whole thing.
There's also the argument of, because a lot of people don't like Ryan Murphy and his shows, about Dahmer, the up and coming one about Ed Gein, the Mendez brothers. I can see Ryan Murphy getting his hands on trying to do a Jim Jones type series. But there's also comes the argument of glorifying a cult leader, which I don't see it that way.
I don't either.
Think it's putting that information out that people need to know, because this stuff is still going on today.
Yeah, well, so really relevant part of this, Eli Roth was not attached to this movie until after it was finished. And this movie was this film was financed without a finished script. So
other guy had to do all the legwork, and then Eli Roth was like, sure, stamp my name on it.
I think he had done most of it, and Eli Roth then came in and helped him
put the stamp on it.
I think if this is Ty West before Ty West goes and does a lot of horror royalty stuff that he does. So I think this is the whole point of Ty West with resources now probably could make a Jonestown movie. But I think his whole point was he picked specific things that leaned into Jonestown, because obviously the mass suicide part of it, and that it's scary, but more specifically, he wanted to make a relevant movie about cults. And so he put a lot of things in there that kind of did lead with more ambiguity, but obviously when you're trying to get people interested in this movie, especially talking about cults, you are going to pick one of obviously the biggest tragedies.
It's the biggest. And that's, I believe, I agree with you though, Kylie, was that it's like, make it, I think of like Schindler's List.
Yes.
Like, make it something like that. Because I think if you plug it as a horror movie, people are then like, you're trying to make money off of the 930, or 918 people that were slain via mental things, where if it's a historical bio, think of World War II movies, terrifying what happened with
or like the
that
people
whole
who did
thing.
the Elvis movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're painting a true
Like
story.
Yeah, I think that I love that movie, and just it showed a complete side of Elvis that I did not know about. I think the people from that, if they did something like that, I think they could do it justice.
Well, first of all, Baz Luhrmann did Elvis, and at the time, Baz Luhrmann got a heap ton of shit for making Elvis a musical. So it's the same thing that we're talking about with the Sacrament. So the same argument could be made. Eli Roth and Ty West knew what they were doing by making it a horror movie, because let's face it,
and you can make
true crime really didn't have its hooks in the way it does at the time that this came out. We're talking about when this was formulated, 2011, 2012. Obviously, the landscape has changed.
Yeah.
So I think with what was available at the time, he did everything he possibly could. I think going back to this, he probably would want, if he could go back, he probably would try to make a more significant, because he has reflected about how that was a very important project for him, especially one that this is kind of one of his first, things out the gate. Was, he had other movies at the time, but this is one of the few that kind of then helped launch him into it. So I
think if I take that side where this is a horror movie that's very heavily closely based on those, but is different, then I'm able to not I swear the whole movie I was like, that's not how this goes.
No,
you're cheapening this, you're cheapening this. And it kind of just made the point of what we said just a second ago, where I was like, they're cheapening the whole horrible tragedy, where if it's a horror movie that they're just kind of taking the bones, the very, very small bones of, it makes, then I guess it's not so bad. I think there was bad acting, but
well, there is, but then there's also, like, we'll get into some of the other parts, because there is one piece of trivia that I found completely interesting, especially regarding Gene Jones, who plays Jim Jones. So that's a very interesting thing. So obviously, before we get into facts about the movie and everything, we're going to talk about Jim Jones. So for those of you that don't know about Jim Jones out there, we are just going to kind of really summarize, because honestly, if we got into like the full meat and potatoes of Jim Jones, this would be a 3-hour episode. Like, truly. So I do have a list that I was able to compile some. I found it from other lists. I also threw in some of my own. So I will put that down below. There are tons of different YouTube videos and podcasts that have talked about Jim Jones, tackled into it. So if you're listening to this and you want to dive deeper, I will definitely make sure to link down below some documentaries, some books. And
I found a lot of stuff that was written by his son, from his son. One being, I think it's something through like Berkeley. I think the Alternative Considerations of Jonestown and People's Temple, and it's by Stephen Jones and a lot of other different people, like their family members who were involved. And I found it to be completely interesting. And a lot of the documentaries and stuff that I've watched, a lot had Stephen, his son, involved. And I just think I can't imagine being the son of Jim Jones.
Yeah.
Well, or being the adopted children of Jim Jones, because that's another thing we'll get into. But Creepy, when we were talking about this, she had talked about a book, so I don't think it's gonna do it. But Kylie's got it. It's The Road to Jonestown.
I feel like I accidentally started a book club with this thing.
The Road.
I have more.
We listen. You could give us a whole.
This is a great one. Whoever's seeing this, it's really good.
Oh, I love that. Actually, that is on the list that we're going to put down below. And I did
It's very
bookmark
good.
that to watch that, read that while we're on vacation. This is The Road to Jonestown, Jim Jones at People's Temple, Jeff Gwynn. I found this fascinating. I will be getting the Kindle version of this because I got the actual physical version of this, and whoever printed this
was drunk.
it had some issues because half of the page. I thought
or perhaps
it was only
took too much medication that day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know, but it was bad. So I got to read some of it, but this was great context, especially because I think talking about it, hearing it is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was telling Creepy and Kylie before, when they started the book, they talk about some of the military members from Guyana going in and actually finding the bodies. And part of that was they waded into that area and they were hitting something on the ground. They could not figure out what it was. And it was actually the bodies. And then there is part of this
layers.
Yeah, there were multiple layers, and it was just, and I had never actually, I'd seen some things, but I never actually seen the extent of the pictures. And we're not going to show it here on camera because obviously we'll get demonetized.
Really
amazing
because I mean, this happened back in 1978, but I mean, this was broadcast on the news.
As they were going in recovering, they were on the news. Oh,
and
I can't imagine
something that graphic being on television back then.
Yeah.
Well,
they did the same thing with Heaven's Gate. They were walking in with a camera crew as you saw bunk beds with bodies and purple shrouds on them. And they were just like, tonight on the evening news, we're going in. And like, this was
and it's crazy to me because if you think about it, so like,
because everybody's sensitive nowadays.
Well, but here's the thing. Even before that, if you think about Gacy and how the cops, but you think about like how bad it was with Gacy, where the cops, like a lot of the cops that were there, they had like a lot of them ended up having to get intense therapy for years after that because of how bad that was.
They weren't like whole, even though the bodies that were whole at Jonestown, it's so hot and humid. The decomposition happens so fast. But at a house like Gacy, where they were under there were layers, there were multiple spots, and they had been there for a while. Between the moisture, the Illinois, dirt.
Well, and he had put the insulation and everything on top of them to like heat so I mean, these are horrible situations, but just hearing it graphically, and I will say that they try to do as much as they possibly can to not sensationalize a lot of certain things in this book.
I appreciated that actually when I read it.
And especially even with the pictures that they do include, it's not like specific. They were very intentional about the pictures they included. I don't feel like they did it out of disrespect for anybody that passed there. But we do have to remember that up until 9/11, this was the worst tragedy, like mass unaliving at that point in time, because if I am mistaken, it was like 933 bodies.
First Jonestown, 918.
Yep. And I was getting it confused because it's 918 bodies that they found. And then unlike the movie where only 2 people make it out alive, 33 were able to make it out of Jonestown. But Jim Jones is a very interesting person. Jim Jones started out from a lot of nothing. His family, his mom in particular, was very interesting for the time that he was around.
She held degrees. She wasn't like an average. I think she held 2 degrees.
Yeah.
She worked at the kind of like a mill type job, drinking beer and cussing, and was just very unlike the norm. And his dad was a World War I vet who was very messed up following the war.
Yeah.
So it was like it was very interesting, dynamic.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of crazy that his mom got involved with the People's Temple and everything. Like, but I was very shocked by that she, just because of how she was and how she was to Jim, and she didn't seem like the type that would be involved
No,
in something
because
like that.
she knew that her son was gonna be great.
Yeah,
Like she has this
that's what it was about.
Thing, but
especially because she wasn't even religious.
No, she didn't believe in any sky god, as she would call it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. By the way, anything that we're talking about, like factual wise, all of that will be linked in the description down below. We are going to cite our sources because we are not those kind of ghouls where we do not give credit where credit is due. So, because we did, I want you guys to know that if we are talking about this, we have heavily researched this topic because we like being informed people and knowing what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
but always willing to learn. So if somebody finds a source that I haven't seen before, because if you've watched my show, if you're from me, that's why you're coming here. I'm known for my library, my own curated library, but there is always more to learn.
Yes.
So,
yeah. But Jim Jones, a lot of this starts with Jim's own personal search for a religion he can call his own. And, it only spirals more when he meets up with his wife and they kind of move forward. But a big part of this is Jim found a home with the African American community, and in a time where that was not something that was, especially in the South, was not deeply regarded, and really kind of exploited communities. I mean, he really tried to help.
What that man did, is like in the minorities, because on one end, he did a lot of great things in some of these towns, as far as just like segregation and like making it to where African American people can go to a restaurant and get decent food like white people can. But in all actuality, he was manipulating and taking advantage of that in the most disgusting way.
And the religion part of it is, my perspective on it is, as you go through from when he's a kid to when his neighbor takes him to church for the first time. And then at that point, he doesn't just stay with a religion. He tries out the next one, because he enjoys the kind of the pomp and circumstance of it all, that someone is speaking and then there's music and then everyone's together, and he can go every week. And even I think it starts that way as a little kid. And unfortunately, then as he gets older, by then he knows what churches tend to act a certain way. And I think he manipulated from the beginning. I don't, maybe he had good intentions, perhaps, that he wanted to be segregated. He didn't want to be segregated, and he wanted to have a rainbow family. But I also think he was able to, some churches or religions, are more strict or not strict. And I feel, my personal opinion is, perhaps he found one that wasn't as strict or structured, where certain behaviors are allowed. Like, just as an example, I am Lutheran. A Lutheran church, when you go to, it's very quiet. It's very, very quiet.
Yeah,
you have Lutheran, and you stand up and sit down 5,000 times. You recite the same thing.
Yeah. So we had a little bit of a technical difficulty. I get what you're saying, though, because Kylie and I are obviously, Christian, because we go to a Christian family retreat, but I grew up in a Lutheran church. I was baptized Lutheran. My grandparents are Lutheran, and that is a very, I get what you're saying. The pomp and church. Yeah, it's very structured. It's very
conservative, which I think is why I like it. And for me, that's what makes me feel like a certain way about it. Everybody's allowed that, especially in today's day and age.
Yeah.
But I feel that Jones may have been maybe have picked a certain way so that he could manipulate easier. I don't know. That's not necessarily
I get
more
what
people that, it's a little more flamboyant.
The passion, because I get
it's
it
very
because
different.
because I have a friend. His name is Royce. He is a very wonderful person. He is African American, and he has taken me to his family's home church in Cleveland. And we would get up very particularly at a certain point in time. It'd be like, okay, put on your good church clothes. I'm going to take you here. We're going to go get fried chicken afterwards. He was the only person to this day that could get me to eat chicken on a bone, because the chicken place that he took me to was fantastic, like just amazing, incredible. But it is very passionate, and that's one of the things that I liked about it too. And you could see when reading certain things about Jones, how he kind of maybe, and again, this is my own personal opinion too, where he saw the passion that people had in those circumstances. And he realized how, because of political climate and social economic things that were going on in that time, how he could end up exploiting that.
And it follows the cult type thing. What he did was, when it comes to, you have a group of people that are already feeling the issues within society, either I know I mentioned Heaven Gates earlier, but it's another big one, and it involves the same type of thing. Some people were outcasts. Some people, maybe they didn't have family that liked them. Change lanes over here into Jim Jones. You have people that are already, they can't even go sit at a restaurant still in certain places. And it's 1978. The Emancipation Proclamation was how many years before that? And they still are fighting. So there's already turmoil. They have no place to turn to within the public eye. Again, that's like the perfect place for a cult leader to start plucking people or grouping them together, like he did.
Or how he manipulated just kind of like the elderly community and people suffering from drug and alcohol abuse. Like, when I read that he opened like rehab facility type things, as being like a recovering addict, there are to this day a lot of religious based treatment programs.
Oh, sure.
That border the line of almost kind of being culty. I won't get into specifics about a kind of like what family member, but he suffers from some things, and he got involved with a church that had a program, and like, he wasn't allowed to call anybody for like a year. He had to like pay money out of pocket to go. And I was just like, this does not sound okay. This does not sound okay.
But I think a lot of times people will say it's culty, when really it's just bad. It's just bad. It has necessarily, it's bad business. It's bad for the person. It's bad treatment. And I think kind of a lot of words are thrown out a lot in today's day and age. Culty is one of them. This is not against anybody that's listening to this. Triggered is another word I hear. Trauma is another word I hear. And while those words, yes, do have validity, I think they're overused.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because they are valid.
Yeah,
but
no,
they lose that because people just dump them in everywhere.
No, they're
gaslighting.
Yeah,
yep, another one.
Yeah, I think
narcissism. That's another one.
Yeah, I feel like we live in a time where therapy has become such a backbone for people, but it's also such a buzz thing. In certain
I think
aspects.
Right now too is prime cult time again.
Yep, it really is.
In another segment of time.
The thing that, so not to get off like too tough, but
we're on it. Go for it, girl.
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, the second season just came out, and I watched that obviously. And the last episode, there is an argument going on between two of the women, and there is a woman that is trying to get one of the other women kicked out of the group. And she has done bad things to a lot of the people, and she's kind of just barking in the wrong area.
Right.
But her friend, who she kind of made really shitty comments about her salon when this person is like giving them free hair and being a friend. She's like, she is that friend that like you almost believe her in certain circumstances because she's this smart, intelligent person that throws this like therapy talk back to you, so it makes you feel like you're in the wrong.
Right.
But in reality, she's just doing that to weaponize what, you know, all of that against you when really she is in the wrong. And I think that's the way that it is too in a lot of situations. And we do have a time period where that, and honestly, we all intimately can say that. Like there are certain situations that have gone on in my life, especially in the last 6 months, where there have been things that have been weaponized against me that I'm like, I cannot believe that this is where we're at with things right now. But
thankfully you have the wherewithal to know that is what's happening.
Yeah. Well,
with this case with Jones,
yeah,
a lot of these people didn't.
They did not. And I think it's different when there are a lot of people in your life that I feel like will say, yes, I'm that person that will like jump in the fire with you, will pull you out. There are not a lot of people who will walk it. I am very fortunate because I've had a lot of different friendships that have fizzled out. That's just part of like growing up in life. Yeah. But I will tell you, Kylie is that friend. Kylie will come in and pull me out.
It's a shout out on the episode.
Kylie will be the person that will be like, friend, I love you. This is some bullshit, but yeah, I'm gonna pull you out of this. But then you need to get your fucking shit together.
Get out of there.
Yeah. She is that person. She loves me enough to be like, I love you, but I'm also gonna check you. Yeah. And she does it in a way that never. Yeah, she's a good friend. But a lot of people, relationships are so different, especially now with social media and the way that just all of that has played a part into things, and just the way that life is now with all the different aspects of technology and everything like that. And so it is harder and harder to have a real connection with people. I'm very lucky because
and that's why I think it's going to happen again here soon. Yeah. We hear about cults all the time, you know, NXIVM, whatever, you know, there's Church of Scientology. I know I'll throw that in there. Everyone says that's a girl. You know, I don't know. I haven't read a lot about it, but it's in there. Those are modern-ish ones, but I'm talking ones like this, where you don't have, like, you have Kylie as a friend, for an example, to help you, keep you on track, pull you out of the fire, put you in the fire, whatever you may need. Where I think a lot of these people who got into Jonestown, even though there were so many of them, they didn't, or they felt that
they had people around them that their friends were also the people that were getting sucked into. Yeah, because I think that's a big thing.
I think in today's world, we're giving up and losing a lot of faith in certain systems, ideas, the way things of how we were raised and what we think things should be. We have more crappy parents too.
Yeah.
So I definitely think
I agree.
It's definitely like prime time for cults.
Yeah. No, I agree, because if you look at this, so this is a sheet that I kind of just like jotted some things into, and we believe in ethical AI over here, not like we don't believe in like
Meanwhile, I have like a Dick Tracy notebook.
Let's be clear. I entered
note cards.
But it's so cool that you guys have notes. I was like,
but let's be clear. Cassandra put in the work for this, but the Word helped with this,
right?
With rearrange it, yeah. But if you look at this, like time, Kylie really did the work. Like
I'm so proud of your homework, guys.
Oh. Thank you. We were really. Proud. I mean, we always do homework, but we knew if we brought you on here,
it seems like you guys got some extensive work done on this one. I'm stoked.
Yeah. So, but if you look at like the timeline, when he expands People's Temple from San Francisco and Los Angeles, and he starts really like thinking about, they begin the construction on the commune in Ghana. Guyana, South America, which becomes Jonestown, obviously.
Right.
That starts in 1974. It is then November 18th, 1978. That is when the mass suicide happens and all the events that continue. So
it's not that long of time.
No, it's not.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
And it really is a stark reminder of how things can just so rapidly
Super quick
go up in flames. So for those of you who don't know, essentially what happened is when Jim Jones did kind of rise into power with the People's Temple, and he did start having really a foothold on people, and Jonestown was proposed, he started really his full control of people. And that's where you see people signing away their life savings, giving their all to make this community happen. When it does happen, it becomes a situation where pretty much you kind of, it's the genie idea of you don't always know what you're asking for. You know,
Right.
yeah, they think that they are doing this because a big thing about this is because of the way that he picked people who were in ostracized communities, he was able to play up people's fear of the government coming to get them.
Yeah. What was really happening.
Yeah.
Well, and it was also during the time of just like Vietnam War.
Yeah.
We were dealing with stuff like with Russia. I mean, just it was like he was very paranoid, and he fed these people like these apocalyptic type things are going to happen. You have to listen to me and come with me, and we're going to be safe. We're going to be okay. And kind of just had like these invisible enemies, and it was just paranoia.
Yeah.
So, well, and truly what happens once he gets into Jonestown and he starts really fully exerting his control, he implements what he calls white nights, which they rehearsed the suicide, which ingrained that further. So what really catapults all of this into the dangerous situation that it becomes is Leo Ryan, who is a congressman at that point in time, tons of families were reaching out and talking about how their family members were being abused and their concerns. And there was just a lot of dissent at that point in time. He decides to visit Jonestown. He kind of like what happens in the, movie, at first, they really don't want him to come. It is something, Guyana gets pressure put on him. They kind of put pressure on Jim Jones to meet with him. And so he does meet. And initially he kind of has the opinion of, oh yeah, this is bad, but this is people choosing kind of what's going on. It's only at the point in time when he tries to leave that there are defectors, kind of like what happens in the movie where we see people that help me, where people try to leave with him, and he then gets murdered, and a bunch of people around him that were with him at the airstrip trying to leave, and it's by Jones armed guards, because at this point in time, Jim Jones had guards guarding so he could keep control of people, and he used it under the guise that people are coming after us.
Protection.
We need to protect ourselves, but really he was policing everyone. So hours later, he finally pulls the trigger and says, okay, our drills that we've been going through, this is what's happening. The world's closing in on us. People are coming to get us. And over 900 people died. Like Creepy said, 918.
Yep.
More than 300 children. And they do so by ingesting cyanide laced drink, often misidentified as Kool-Aid, which is not. It was actually Flavor Aid, which
because it was cheaper.
It is, but and to this day, Flavor Aid is still sold.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
it is sold at the Dollar Tree. And for those of you that were wondering what was in my cup, I had cherry sugar-free Flavor Aid in my cup with my creatine.
Yeah, and I believe, and what's so crazy is like, so cyanide is what you see in all these spy movies, right? They have a capsule, they pop the tooth because it deprives your ability to take in oxygen. So it made sense, like the way that they did it in the Sacrament. They showed a couple people, especially the guy that gets the brother. Yeah, the way that he died. I'd say out of the entire movie, by the way, he was the only one where I was like, there's acting there. Like, it's good. That's legit. That's how you would die.
That scene was so like
that was the only one where I was like, oh, it's a little rough. Yeah. It was a little intense. But the rest of it, I was like, come on, guys. But I digress. Cyanide is not an easy death. It never is.
No.
You convulse, you can't breathe. It's like being suffocated and having like, is it diffusion, in everything all at the same time within your lungs. And if I remember, they also laced it with another drug.
Yeah, they did, because that was the other problem with this, is Jim Jones secretly for years was using drugs. And like you had brought up, creepy, that's a big reason why him and his wife had the glasses that we associate him with. It was so that they couldn't see like what was going on. And so
he said he wore those because like of the power of God being in his eyes, and if you stared in his eyes too long,
it's because you took too many Quaaludes. Like, I don't know what to tell you, bro.
You mixed with too many. And let's just really quickly, we're not going to talk but obviously he had a weird way of going around things, especially with women, about the whole part of him being the only one that could purify people through sex. And that was his way of getting around people being upset at him for cheating. And the fact that he kind of went to his wife, who had her own issues and was taking care of their kids, and was like, hey, I love you, I don't want to divorce you, but I need to fuck another woman. That was kind of weird.
Well, he also got busted for homosexual relations.
Yes, he did.
And then then he like brought it in where it could, it was okay, it was part of it, and that's he could fix it or whatever. And it was like, well, what else are you gonna bring in? Like,
well, and the weird part about it is it's never been confirmed, but there has always been questions about him in particular grooming children, and how that could have been something that also was going on. Again, this is allegedly, and we do see pictures of him kind of acting like the dad type and stuff like that. And whether that was part of his mask that he felt like was important, or it was truly him having predatory behavior, we have no idea. But as we had talked about, the Guyana government actually, they end up pretty much finding out like, hey, something really, really bad happened. We need you to go in and check out, because they had heard, somebody had told them that, hey, these are the gunshots. And they really had to strategically plan how to go in, because they were afraid of people getting killed.
Get shot.
Or they were afraid of the people that they were trying to save getting killed, or them getting killed. And so finally, when they do go in, they are the ones that ultimately are wading through the bodies. And like I said, if you want to look, there are photos out here. I would definitely recommend, again, this book, because I do think it does a good job of not sensationalizing a lot of it and just letting the specs speak for itself. But it does have some pretty prominent pictures that I think are respectfully chosen.
They're like perfect ones.
There is a shot where you can see the pavilion and all the bodies just around it. And like Kylie had talked about the other day, the one thing that really stood out for her is them talking about going over it aerially with the plane and how it looked like confetti.
One of the military guys in one of the documentaries I was watching said that it looked like confetti from like an aerial perspective. And I mean, it's
I looked at the picture. So I don't know if you guys knew. So I worked in a funeral home for several years, and you get to see people in various degrees of decomposition, and you'd be amazed of people that get brought in that need to be made pretty, that were left out for just a couple days because they didn't know that they had passed away. But if it was in the middle of summer, I mean, that's an odor you never forget.
Oh, and that's in the summer.
Person. I mean, now I did pets too, so I know what that has an odor as well. But I can't imagine that many people.
No, I cannot. I cannot either. I cannot imagine.
Or what was taking place physically.
Yeah.
Post that, because it was the purge and everything, because that's real. Like you do purge, and it's disgusting. I'm like, oh, it had to be so bad.
It was horrible. And then that's when, they were able, the survivors were able to come forward and talk about just how bad this was and really bring light to this. But it is just something that then it gets referenced, and obviously Drink the Kool-Aid, which again was not historically accurate.
Right.
But
it rolls off the tongue a little easier.
Yeah, it does. Like Drink the Flavory doesn't really.
It doesn't have the same pizzazz.
It doesn't have the same razzmatazz, but it is something that then kind of just briefly you hear about here and there, and with connections to, like, I know with 9/11 it was brought up because of the fact of, obviously, then that's the next big mass casualty that happens after that. And that was something in connection, but it is something that kind of, for lack of a better term, fades into the background, like so many of these situations do. So that is why movies like these are important. So before I get kind of into the trivia of this, there is maybe one or two questions, because I want to try to watch our time here too. But the one big question I have for both of you is, which elements of the sacrament do you feel like mostly closely resembles the real life events of the Jonestown massacre?
Kylie, do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. I think the one was when it's towards the end and the Jones-like figure is telling them, like they're trying to ingest it, and the way that he's like, yes, drink, or be calm. I can't remember what he says in the movie, but the way that he keeps repeating it it reminded me of the death tapes, the very last, death tape, the very last FBI tape that they have, where he is repetitiously saying things to try and quiet people. I don't think it's to calm anybody. I think he's just sick of the noise. But that is my opinion. I think that one did really well. And then it showed how the sister, her devotion, and the way that she was clearly brainwashed, willing to do anything. I think that they did a really good job with those two characters, like those two instances.
Yeah. Kylie, do you want to go, or you want me to go?
I would say I really liked what they did with Caroline's character. I think it was pretty spot on to what it really was like for the real life mistress, whose name also was that, just spelled differently. But I didn't like, also in just how they were injecting people with this and holding people down who did not want to do this, and that actually really happened. And I don't think a lot of people even know that part really about
babies and children.
Yeah.
Yeah. you hear in the death tapes, like the one woman, like, why don't we go to Russia? Like he's just trying to like talk them all out of it, and then you hear people in the background kind of like berating her.
Mm-hmm.
But there was definitely, I guess they couldn't have the budget for it, but like the amount of people that they had at Eden Parish, and the amount of people that were in Jonestown, I feel like they could have just added more people.
Like to really like put the period on it. I think they should have like, even if it was CGI'd, then they should have doubled or tripled what they had, because they were kind of all over the place. So it didn't give that like confetti feel like you mentioned, you know.
But I did like how they portrayed the scene where they're trying to leave and like they're shooting at them. I think they did that pretty well. I think that was pretty spot on.
Yeah, they just replaced the government person, you know, Leo. The two,
I think the thing that they did well for me, and it's maybe not even necessarily the actors, but the scene where he is interviewing him and the way that that his character kind of, when you see interviews with Jim Jones or Jim Jones talking, that's very much like how he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that they really played up well is the line between charisma and manipulation, and how kind of looking into, because there are different times and points in this movie where not only are the main characters questioning whether or not this is appropriate or not, or it's not their place to go in and do this, but they're also questioning themselves. And you can see very clearly from the time that they land that plane and everything transpires the way that it does, the manipulation is already starting even before they get to that point. And I think that's one of the things that they did really well. I will say too, this is a really good example of when found footage is done right.
I did enjoy that. I was like, and I was so proud because I thought of the horror community that I have met now, where I've learned a lot of little terminology. And as soon as he was walking around, I'm like, ooh, this is good found footage. Oh, I know the word.
But I feel like a lot of people feel like found footage can be stale because it's always this but this is a form
hokey.
But this is a format where this works because this is something that actually truly was happening, like, you know, and so I think this is something definitely that I think there are certain things that I also think another thing that they got right was the policing. You see very clearly and that where they kind of, when you're watching this, you forget at different times that these people are around. And then they kind of, and that's just how you get that kind of sense when you're reading and you're listening to a lot of this, like, how is this going? And I think that's it. So the last question that I want to ask, because we did kind of get through a lot of these without even really
we're just that good.
We're just that good of talking about that.
I knew you were going to ask that too, because that's what these ones are. If you were asked what I liked or disliked.
Yes, I think that's great.
I was like, I better write this down or I'm never going to remember.
So Kylie, you brought this up, but what do you feel like the film is saying about the human need for meaning, community, and leadership, and how these needs can be exploited?
I mean, if you're a part of any sort of minority group, poor, you're addict, alcoholic, you are a senior citizen, you don't fit into the cookie cutter image of what a person in America should be, dazzle in a little bit of trauma from people who parented you in your life or were authority figures in your life, or you have religious trauma, it is easy to be susceptible to falling into a cult. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I do think so. I definitely want to hear Creepy's what she has to say about it, because I think she also, but I think you and I have a similar feeling about this, because there is an unspoken kind of underlying current being special needs parents, where we see this vulnerability in our own community. We see people getting exploited because of their need to feel connected to somebody, or we see people getting preyed upon. We see also how religion can help people in the right circumstances and give them community, but we see both sides very intimately. And it is something we see more, and something that honestly is getting kind of talked about more with more documentaries, like that one that just, not documentary, but it was like a docu-series about that girl that that was the two influencers who had cancer, and then it was like something vinegar on Netflix. I'm trying to think about it, but the one was actually lying about her cancer, and it was so she could be, we see a lot of that where it's like these snake oil kind of people that prey upon, and that is the new kind of wave of that, is where you have these communities now that are more vulnerable than ever, where whether it's the autism community or the special needs community in general, where there is so many more people that are being diagnosed or feeling the complexities, whether it's a loved one, a relative, whatever it is, friend, coworker, whatever. That is where the crux of it. And we do intimately understand the need to feel seen, because we talk about it very intimately, and maybe it's something that we don't project as much, but we can both realistically say that there is a lot of loneliness and a lot of dark undercurrent in that respect of like the isolation that comes with being in the community that we're in. Because even in our own community, there are people tearing each other down, which it doesn't seem like it's something that should happen, but it does happen. Yeah. And for you and I, we're lucky enough that we've found an outlet and that we found each other. But there are a lot of people that don't.
Well, and I also think social media, there's a need for everybody who is on social media to fit in some category or community.
Yes.
And they will do whatever it takes to fit in that community or category. And I think that's a problem too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So,
you have more followers and leaders.
Yes. Creepy, I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say before we move on to the trivia.
I think I had something formulated in my brain, but now I've kind of forgot the question. Can you please repeat it?
Yeah, I can definitely repeat it. Let me go ahead and get back to my notes. What is the film saying about the human need for meaning, community, and leadership, and how these needs can be exploited?
I think that it did. I'll answer it this way. I think it did a good job of showing that at the heart of something as crazy as a cult, and especially Jonestown, like it showed the lady that was a nurse, the lady that was working in the garden. The nurse was also taking care of the children. And if you just take kind of those two out of it, there is caring in there, and there's caring in the society, and it shows that. But then it also shows that someone like Jones can brainwash any individual, from the nurse who is educated, takes care of everybody, all the way down to, I'll say the average commune goer who just wants to relax in the sun, smoke some herb, and wash laundry. It affects those people too. They're not there to just do that. So I think that the movie showed that it kind of targets those people. But I can't, I don't know. I don't really know kind of how else it does. It's such a small movie. I wish that they would have shown, like you said, more people. It would have shown that desperation. And I wish that the cast in the people that were in the commune were a little more diverse.
Yeah, there are. I would say there are definitely better movies that highlight.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad. Just
the intricacies of cults. We'll
mhm.
link them down below, but like I can definitely think of just off the top of my head, The Lodge, The Invitation, and oh my gosh, there are so many different ones. That I could just, especially horror related. So we'll put those in the description down below. Please
Okay.
go check this movie out. We really want you to watch it really quickly as we wrap up before we move on to what's on our mind in horror this week. Some of the trivia. Gene Jones nailed the interview scene that I was talking about in a single 17-minute take.
Ooh, that's tough to do.
Yeah, he walked in, did it, and I questioned this for a minute. I'm just going to say because of the fact that it is a very but I did watch footage and it.
Yeah. And that's different because it had you can tell multiple cameras, so it had to go back and forth.
Yeah.
And that means that his cohort also had to be also do the same.
Yeah, which is insane.
The interviewer.
Yeah. Which we're going to get to that interviewer here in a minute. Because he's not Kylie and I's favorite person. This film was shot in chronological order. So unlike many movies where it is shot in pieces and around, this was shot in the same sequence that the movie is then shown. Okay. 2 retired members of the Harlem Globetrotters played background roles in this movie.
Well, I wonder where, like the hotel or something. Or no, that didn't.
No. I think it was the basketball when they were playing basketball.
Yeah, they were playing basketball. Yep.
Yeah. 30 minutes of background information was ultimately cut from the movie.
Huh. Probably to kind of detach it a little bit.
Yeah. The film was financed without a finished script. All the cabins in Eden Parish were built for this movie specifically, which is a feat in itself. So this is what Kylie and I were talking about earlier. Amy Swetson, Joe Swanberg, and AJ Bowen previously worked together on another horror movie. Kylie, what horror movie was that?
You're Next.
Yes. 2011's You're Next, which Sam, the interviewer and probably the more titular character in this movie, plays everyone's fuck ass hated character of Crispin. Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about with You're Next, Crispin was Erin's boyfriend who ultimately betrayed her in the end of the movie by being part of it the whole entire time. Again, if you want to plot a family member's death, you might want to background check and make sure your girlfriend doesn't have survival skills first.
Uh-oh.
Just a PSA. So Vice is a real news media company based out of Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York. This is the second movie about jungles that Eli Roth has been involved with, the first being The Green Inferno, which I can't recommend to you because I have not watched the whole thing, nor do I ever want to. So,
all right,
not doing it. According to the film commentary, in the original conceived ending, the helicopter pilot was not shot. Once the helicopter got to the altitude, the pilot proclaimed, "We must follow Father's orders," and crashed the helicopter, killing everyone on board. This was inspired by an actual piece of Jonestown because there were certain people in Jonestown that were trained as pilots, and this was part of one of the perceived suicide attempts.
To take them all out.
Yep. The film is clearly based on the real-life drama of Jonestown's mass suicide in Guyana in 1978. In the film, Caroline is Father's right hand and seemingly love affair. Coincidentally, Jim Jones had a mistress named Carolyn.
Yep.
The title Father given to the cult leader character in this film has multiple meanings. This is the exact title that Jim Jones insisted the followers call him before and during their time in Guyana. in Jonestown. Additionally, the title of father has religious meanings often given in church to the priest. So please check it out. I will list the IMDb facts below. Before we get into what's our favorite thing in horror this week, please go check out Creepy Confidential. She has a episode about Jinn.
Yep, Jinn Genie.
Genies.
The origin of the Jinn race just went out today.
Yes. And for those of you who have listened before, you know that one of my favorite movies is Wishmaster, which has a Jinn. So I highly recommend you go watch it and listen to the episode as well. It's a great companion piece. Creepy has an incredible channel. Please go check her out and everything you do. We will also list our episode down below that we did with her as well, which was incredible. The things that we talked about. If you want to see Creepy Confidential in person, she will be at GhoulieCon this July, and we will put the details down below. GhoulieCon, if you do not know, you know that that's where we all met over the summer. But it is ran by Coven of Screams, aka our friend Joanna. And so we will link all the details down below. And go give everyone a follow, support GhoulieCon. This is their second year, and we want it to be their best year possible. And
our table is going to be awesome. Not only is it merch, I'm doing a full paranormal touch table. So anybody who's coming, you can be part of the stone tape theory experiment where our memories are held onto items. You can come touch them, handle them, and add your memory.
Sweet.
Come check it out.
Interesting.
That is very cool. So let us know if you do go to GhoulieCon and you participate in that, because we would love to know. So Kylie, what is on your mind in horror this week?
You know, I've been sitting here thinking, like, what have I been doing in horror this week? And
I know what else in horror you did this week.
What did I do?
You horrified your friend by telling her about the polyamorous show that has apparently taken over the internet.
Oh, that is
Poly family.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it is. I mean, to each their own. I'm not saying anything. Okay, here's a hot take. I can understand a polyamorous relationship when there is like a religious basis involved. I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's great. It's not my thing, but to each their own. But there is no religious nothing of this. And it's just, I don't even know. I see like them breaking up. Don't come for me, people that are on this show. But
she is inviting the drama.
I'm just giving my opinion. Like, if it works for you, great. But it on TV, it does not look like it's going to work out. I don't know what to tell you.
I actually do have Kylie's what is on her mind in horror this week, and that is Kylie being over on the Hell Zone. Kylie did a video.
I did a review on the monkey.
She did a review on the monkey, and there may be another appearance by the other member coming to the Hell Zone, but we've been crossing over to the Hell Zone a couple different times. Very cool. Day is going to be coming into Horrorcraft as well at some point in time. So please go check out Kylie's video, give Day some love, and yeah.
Hellmaster.
The Hellmaster. Yeah. But this week in horror on my mind, Welcome to Derry.
I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah, Welcome to Derry. They finally did the teaser trailer that came out, and it looks good. And I am sick and tired of people slandering Stephen King properties because they're feeling Stephen King burnout. I understand.
Yeah, they do a lot.
I understand that. I understand they do a lot with his stuff, but I do feel like it is one thing that we could get into a TV show with and get more background information. We consistently forget that even in the miniseries and as alluded into the movies, Jerry had a long history with Pennywise in multiple occurrences, and the kids from it was not just his first forte into all of this. So I think this will be a good show that will tie in everything. And I definitely think that this will be some good content and substance. So, Creepy, we will go ahead and let you plug what's your thing in horror, and
Cool.
we will get out.
You'll have to excuse me. My cats are fighting, so you might hear that. I was trying to mute it, but they're being sassy. So I am still reeling. We went the opening day to the movie Sinners, and because I am a huge I am writing a multi-episode on the history and chronologically of what vampires are, and movie-wise, book-wise, like how they're represented, and then historical. And I love a film like this. It reminded me, I don't know if it's the same person that did it because I didn't look that far, but like the Baz Luhrmann, he did Romeo and Juliet, he did The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, Ryan.
It had that feel.
Yeah, Ryan Coogler did.
Oh yeah.
Sinners, and he had done Black Panther previously.
The way that it was done with the period time, like the time period, the wardrobe. But I was there for the vampires. Show me these vampires that aren't like we modified them so badly up until now. What was with the blade? They had mouths that came open and all this other stuff. Like, show me the big baddies, and they did a great job with that. And I love the lead baddie, Remick. I was like, oh,
we have not seen.
Why do I
yet.
feel a certain way about him?
Yeah, we have neither. We have both. Well, it's because he's hot. Like,
right. I mean, I say that respectfully.
Respectfully, I mean, like Michael. I mean, Michael B. Jordan also. You know,
everybody loves that. Yep, I love him. I get it.
He's hot, but yeah, we have not seen it.
And there's twins, Basil, twins.
Yes,
for you.
Yeah.
But I thought they did I immediately wanted to know, how did they do the makeup? How did they do the eyes? Who did the makeup? Because that's that's my wheelhouse. And I like thoroughly enjoyed it more than I thought I should. Like, because they said it was over 2 hours, like 2 hours and some minutes. It didn't feel like that. When I got to the end, I was like, oh no, I need more.
Yeah, it is a good time for horror because, you know, then Bloodlines, that just came, Final Destination Bloodlines just came out,
right?
And that's killing it too. And people are saying that that's like the best in the franchise, and obviously a sad kind of note too because of Tony Todd. But there is just so many inventive horrors that are coming out right now. This is why horror is important, because this is Sinners. Kylie and I have not seen yet. We're waiting for it to come out on digital.
Watch it on a big screen. It was amazing.
Oh, we're gonna try to get a screen to put in Kylie's yard. That's literally like
perfect. Good audio.
Yeah. We're gonna try to like put
music's it in. Good. Everything is enjoyable.
Yeah, if you get a picture of Kylie and I in Kylie's yard with like a screen and we're just in our chairs.
Sinners came out.
Sinners came out. That's what Kylie and I are together. We saved this.
Yeah, I do not like going to the movie theaters. I can't sit still that long. And Nosferatu, I wanted to go, which Mike was shocked for, aka Mr. Creep. And so he took me for that. And then this one, they're both vampire movies. So I'm like, I want them both. When they come out, I'm buying them both.
So I'm excited for us to watch it. So I get it though. Anybody who's in Norwalk, Ohio, and witnessed this, because we're in the future now. I'm going to the theater on Tuesday to see Lilo and Stitch in person with my son, the live action. And Lilo and Stitch was a big movie for me growing up because my grandmother was huge. Great grandmother was huge into Elvis. And I never thought I'd be at a point where I could see it with my own son.
Yeah.
So I will probably
I know, isn't that crazy how that just comes full
Right,
circle?
it
Because
all-
I
It
remember my mom
is.
taking me to see it as a
Yeah,
kid.
it is. And I'm just like, if I'm in the theater and I'm crying, okay,
Leave me alone.
you didn't see it, okay? It was allergies. It's fine. But yeah, I'm not a big movie, but I'm like, we gotta, we
Yeah,
gotta see
gotta.
this. Yeah. It's a full circle moment. There are just some of those that you have to, but yeah, we will definitely at this point in time, if in the future when this episode comes out, Sinners is out on digital, we will link down below where you can find that. Please go and look at all of our sources where you can find a lot of our information, the book that we highlighted, along with some other books, documentaries, movies as well. And thank you for listening along. Go give Creepy some love. And if you were at GhoulieCon this summer, check her out. So
I'm everywhere, and I'm
yeah.
doing my library lectures. I
Yes.
hit the road. We're going everywhere. But if just a real quick plug, so if you guys want to know more, I do cryptids, cults, conspiracies, and otherworldly creepy over on Creepy Confidential. You can go to creepyconfidential.com. It'll take you everywhere. Episodes, videos, you name it, events. That's the one-stop shop for everything creepy.
Yes. And you will want to go into that deep dive because we've been there.
Yes, well.
So until next time, it's me, Cass, and
Kylie.
And Creepy was here.
What's up? Goodbye.
But we are the Horrorcraft podcast, and we're saying bye and stay spooky. Bye.